Welcome to the show, the podcast that dives into the battles women fight on the front lines and within. I'm your host, Olivia Nunn. This series is proudly sponsored by MilMentor, the military community's largest on-demand mentorship network, built by veterans, for veterans, and their families. From job support to networking, find your mentor at milmentor.com. Now let's dive into today's episode, where resilience, service, and strength take center stage. This is Women of War, and I'm here with Angel Rios, a U.S. Air Force senior non-commissioned officer who saw multiple overseas deployment and a humanitarian mission to Albania during the Kosovo War. So let's jump right into her story. Thank you for sharing your time with me on Women of War.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so your story's a little bit different. Most people that I know, regardless if they've served in the military, a nurse, or law enforcement, most of their time is centered around what I know as the time which is like in the early 2000s and in the 20-year, which we know as global war on terrorism. Yours is different. Yours is before that time. So you did the Kosovo War. What was that like? What branch did you serve? And what was that like? And did anybody give you notes as to what you were going to be doing over there?
Right. So we're looking at the late 90s. I enlisted right out of high school. And the only training I had before I deployed was the small tech school training window that we have after basic training and before we land at our duty station. I was lucky enough to be stationed in Germany as my first duty station. And then the Kosovo tragedy happened, and I was picked up, my team and I, to go for the humanitarian mission there. There were no real notes. They talked about what establishing a bear base would be. We would build a tent city out of an empty field, and I just thought, that'll never be me. I'm going to wear a skirt and look cute my entire career. I paid attention, but only enough to pass the test, And sure enough, I was only there about a year, and the Air Force called and said, "Hey, you're up." So at the time, we had sort of a team building protocol for building these tent cities. So the Air Force would just say, "We're going to take a civil engineering team from here. We're going to take my squadron services and put you all on the plane and send you down there." And we were meant to take all of our gear with us. The only thing is, my team doesn't have gear. We just have ourselves and our uniforms in a bag. So when we landed, there was 4 pup tents and a couple of Air Force pallets of MREs. The civil engineering squadron had landed about the day and a half before us, and they had set up a tent for themselves. And then they had this old, Korean War era canvas-sided tent that was leaking because it was raining. It was raining when we got off the plane, and it continued to rain for months. And
what is a pup tent? Tell our listeners what a pup tent is.
Oh, it's a very small, low-to-the-ground tent that you have to crawl to get inside of. And that might have been a luxury. But the security forces individuals were sleeping in those tiny tents. And we were in the old canvas leaking tent. All 18 of us, my entire team, was in the back half of this old tent. And we had, luckily, cots, because CE had brought cots with them. And we had old, musty sleeping bags that the supply squadron had generously given us as we were getting on the airplane. And the next day, we woke up and there were more tents. Yay. So we went outside and we started setting up tents. Something, again, I hadn't done since tech school. So quick crash course. Because it was raining, it was early springtime when we got there. It was cold, but it wasn't cold cold like winter. It was the kind of cold where you get wet and it just kind of slowly creeps into your bones. And we had these tiny cords that we had to like braid together to beckett the sides of the tents together. And you had to choose between wearing the bulky wet gloves and doing it very slowly, or not wearing the gloves and just having red puffy fingers that were starting to shrivel up because you were so wet.
As you're telling this story, it totally reminds me of my time as a cadet. I grew up in Washington State, and if you're familiar with Joint Base Lewis McChord, you're describing that to a T. I also went to college in Virginia and spent plenty of time in the field doing that. And so while you may have been in Albania doing this, that was my cadet time.
Yes.
And I'm laughing because you're reminding me of that time, and I'm not gonna lie, I hated every minute of that.
Yeah.
And you're making me remember the god awful smell of those wet canvas tents. Yes. They don't smell good.
No, it was bad. Well, speaking of smell, we also didn't have porter potties or a shower or anything like that. So we had, the barrel that they cut down, and they would pour GPA on it and light it on fire for the latrine, and they had to dig a well. That took forever. So we were without a shower and running water for quite some time, to just sort of add to the misery.
So how long were you there? How long was your Kosovo adventure?
So I was there for about 4.5 months. Yeah, it was very short.
So besides the fun adventure of setting up and dealing with the weather, what was your actual mission? Why were you sent there? I mean, we talked about it being humanitarian, but were you there to serve the people? And if so, what was your mission?
So I was there to support the Air Force contingent that was on the ground. And their main mission was to fly supplies in to the base, and then the Army would take those supplies by helicopter to the refugee camps. So my primary mission while I was there was in the dining facility to prepare food for the airmen. Again, no electricity. We were doing everything with fuel, so we had to get up really early and pressurize canisters with gasoline, then light them on fire so that we could heat up an oven. And then we didn't have a lot of paper goods, so we had the old mess kits, the metal clink, 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 clink things. So we had to light what we call an immersion heater, which is just a smokestack on a metal tube that also is heated up in trash cans with potable water, and people would sanitize their mess kits as they would come into the dining facility. That was a step up because we had MREs for a long time, much, much longer than we should have, because there was so much backlog of just trying to get the tents and cots and everything there so that people would have a place to sleep. But
for those that don't know what MREs are, what are those?
Meals ready to eat.
And I'm sure when you went, what color were those MRE bags?
They were very dark brown.
Yes. So you could kind of tell how long I was in service. I started with the dark brown bags, and then the new ones are like the light colored brown ones, the tan colored ones.
Yes.
And I think right now the current service members have like these multiple different arrangements, right? Like they have like burritos and stuff like that. We didn't have that.
No.
It was like, you got like, I think there were 3 options, right? And that's all you had. And it was a treat if you had something other than those like charms in that were in them, right? Like I think if you got M&Ms, you're like, woohoo!
It was like jalapeno cheese. Yeah. School
yes.
hard.
Yes. Right. Like what? Like you basically ran around trying to like trade off whatever you had for those for the jalapeno cheese.
Yep.
That was a delicacy.
Absolutely.
Never mind if your stomach hurts. It's fine. It's fine. It's all fine.
Yeah. It was good times. Good times.
So, other than your Kosovo adventure, talk to me about, some other things that you were able to do during your time in the Air Force, and how long were you in the Air Force?
I retired back in 2014. I took advantage of the Terra. Back then, they were having a difficult time balancing the budget, so they offered early retirement to certain career fields and age groups or years. And my husband is also active duty. So we always knew that when 20 years came around, one of us would get out, because it was really difficult being mill to mill. And yeah, it was just the perfect opportunity, perfect time for me to take advantage of that. But I did deploy quite a bit, couple tours in Iraq, lots of places that end in stand and have lots of sand, as I like to say. But every deployment was an extraordinary opportunity to meet people from all around the country and all around the world. And I thoroughly loved it.
So why Air Force? Did you have a family that served in the Air Force, or like why Air Force? Why not the Army? Why not the Marine Corps? Like what drew you to the Air Force?
My grandfather had served in the Army. He retired just before I was born. And I grew up, my parents were very young when they had me, so there wasn't a lot of money to go around. And I was like, I really want to go to college. And one of my mom's coworkers had been in the Marines. And he was like, you should join the military, but you should join the Air Force because they have the best quality of life. And I was like, sign me up for some of that. Originally, I was going to do my 4 years and get out. But that deployment to Albania, the humanitarian mission, it's the reason why I re-enlisted. It's the reason I stayed.
What was it about that mission that made you change your mind from that 4 years to making it a career? What specific moment was that aha or that light bulb that said, this is me, this is my calling?
So my team was asked to help fill a manning shortage out on the flight line, where we loaded rations onto a helicopter that were going to the camp, the humanitarian camp. And just knowing that I was having a direct impact. Every single box that I picked up and put on that aircraft was somebody else having a meal that day. That was literally saving somebody's life, providing them with the calories that they would need so that they could have another day on our planet. And that was it for me.
So you did your time in the military and you look back. Was there ever a point in your career? Because, for me, I did 20. There were moments. I felt like the first 8 went by so fast. And I was in love with my career. And then there's this moment or a couple of years that I was like, I hate this. I do not like this at all. But I've already surpassed the 10-year mark. I'm kind of stuck. And then I fell in love with my career again. Did you ever have that in your career where you're like, I love this, and I hate it, and I love it again? Did you ever have that, or were you in love with your career the whole time?
Oh, no. It was definitely falling in and out of love. Absolutely. I don't know. One of the things that I remember distinctly being like, this is it, I'm done, was showing up to a new duty station. And I had been told before I landed that I was going to be slotted in a particular facility and I was going to be doing a certain thing, because my career field was very, very broad. So like I said, we had food, we had fitness, we had lodging, we had mortuary, and we had NAF resale operations. And I was told that I was going to be at the largest facility managing the airmen and civilians that were working there. And I was like, cool, that's fine. I had just finished working in a very, very large lodging operation. And so it had been a couple years since I had been in food service, but I was ready for it. It was my first love. And then when I landed, they were like, no, we're going to put you in the smaller facility. And I was like in shock. I didn't know why. I did not feel like I should have to prove myself again on a new base we wear our stripes on our sleeves in the Air Force. It's like, this is my resume. I've been here. I've done this. I'm ready. Put me in, coach, And I was just like, I feel like I'm done. I feel like I'm just done.
Did you ever feel like in that proving yourself had anything to do with being a woman? Because I felt like there was a ton of times for me in that respect that it was definitely about me being a woman, that I had to constantly prove myself, that it was every moment, it was about, I had to walk in having to prove myself again and again and again, almost as if daily. I'm just curious as to, did you feel like that's what it was versus what you hadn't accomplished?
No, it definitely felt like it was because I was a woman. I'm in the unique position where I have a name that sounds like a man's name, a very popular Hispanic man's name. And like I said, I had been running a very large operation before I landed there. And the operation that I was taking over was a little bit smaller as far as manpower was concerned. And no one ever says that it's because you're a woman, right?
Well, the smart ones don't ever say that.
Right.
They'll give you the look.
Yeah.
They'll never say it to you if they're smart enough.
So
only the dumb ones say it.
Yeah. It definitely felt like that was it. And yeah.
Speaking of the smart ones versus the dumb ones, if ever in your career, did you ever cross a dumb one that was blatantly dumb enough to say something to you based on your gender, that you shouldn't be there, that you weren't capable enough, all because of your gender? Not because you didn't belong there, because you didn't accomplish it, because you failed to do it, because you hadn't accomplished it based on your inability, but rather simply because they said you didn't belong there because you're a woman. Just curious.
No one ever said it directly because I was a woman. I'm 5 feet 2 inches tall, so they tend to blame it on that. Well, you're short. You're short. That's why you can't do this, or you shouldn't do that. But luckily, that was really, really early in my career where they were that like blatant about it. And I had a really strong female mentor who she was just like, you're going to do everything that the guys do every single day, and you're going to let them see you do it. And I just followed her lead and just tried to always have in the back of my mind, what would Sergeant D do? And then I would just go for it.
You know, you talk about your height as a reason for them to say you couldn't do it. And you know, I'm not too much shorter than you. I'm 5'1", and height, race, gender was always a reason that was thrown at me. Did you ever have male peers that were close in your height? I mean, not that you're going to find a bunch of 5'2" men, but curious as to, did you ever have shorter men that were around you that maybe got some slack?
Not that I ever recall witnessing. Mm-mm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's always surprising to me that that there's always a reason for not wanting women around. But we've been in service all the way to the foundation of our country, right? Mm-hmm. And I just don't understand why there's such an aversion to having women. Really drives me bonkers on that one.
Yeah.
But yet, we are part of the equation. And even if we weren't part of the equation from a military standard, we're part of the equation when it comes to relationships.
Right.
Just, I scratch my head often on that one.
Yes.
So you got out, you retired, and talk to me about what was your next journey? What was the next adventure for you?
College. Yeah, the whole reason I had enlisted in the first place. I finally got around to finishing my bachelor's in history. I decided to pursue a master's in history as well. At the time, we were stationed in Eastern Washington, so I went to EWU. Yay! And a lot of people tried to discourage me. They're like, "That's not a very lucrative field. You should really try something that is going to pay you as a civilian." Sorry, my phone. But I figured I only have one GI Bill, and I'm going to use it to pay for something that I love. And so I'm a public historian. There aren't a whole lot of us in the world, but you can find us working with the public in like national parks and historical museums. And I love it.
Besides being a historian, what else do you do? What was part of that growth or that transformation that I say transition leads to transformation. What other transformation for Angel has it been since hanging up your uniform?
Yeah, I just became a collector of experiences. When I was on active duty, I noticed that there was an Antarctica ribbon, and I was like, how could I do that? And I couldn't figure it out while I was on active duty, but I did as a civilian. So I went down there, and I was a civilian contractor for a while. And then when I came home, I was talking to a friend. I was like, I wonder what my next adventure should be. And she was like, you should try pageantry. So
back up for a second. You went to Antarctica?
I did.
Tell me about Antarctica because I had a conversation with my two kiddos, and we were talking about, because they were learning geography, and they're talking about the 7 continents, and they're like, "Mom, have you been to the 7 continents?" And I was like, "No, I have not been to the 7 continents." And so we actually talked about the continents that I've been on, and actually I've been on 4 of the continents, and I'm like, I would love to actually say that I've been to the 7 continents. Yeah. And they're like, what are the 7 continents? So we named them. And they're like, there's no way you're going to ever go to Antarctica. Nobody lives on Antarctica. I was like, actually, they do.
Yeah. I
was like, scientists live there. There's research that's being done.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, Mom, would you live there? I was like, no. I was like, I want to do the Instagram thing. Fly me in, coach. Let me take some cute snow bunny pictures and then fly me back out. So tell me, what is Antarctica like?
Oh, it is the most beautiful, brutal place in the world. For as hot and sandy as the deserts are, it is cold and snowy and very, very dry. It is absolutely a desert, but with snow and ice. It's amazing. And I think that everybody should go. You should absolutely go and get a selfie.
So how long were you there, and what were you doing there?
So I was a contractor. My food service experience got me into the kitchen. I was responsible for ordering the food that I would then box up and put on a helicopter to send to the remote sites where the small scientific teams were doing their research. I was there from September until February, which is their summer, our winter. And the funny thing about it is I live in Dayton, Ohio, and there were times that it was colder here than it was down there around Christmas time. But when I first landed, it wasn't quite daylight all the time. We were still getting a little bit of darkness, and it was cold, brutally cold and windy. And they give us these giant red parkas. And I was in my dorm room under all my blankets with my parka on top of me because the heat could not keep up with us going in and out, bringing our bags in. Yeah, but stunning, beautiful.
Oh, I don't know if I can do that. I hate the cold. If anybody knows me, they know I cannot stand the cold. I am I don't even say fair weather. I am a warm weather person. If the temperature drops below 75, I am complaining. I am totally complaining. I love the warm weather. So I don't know. 6 months sounds brutal. Brutal.
I think we had like a heat wave of like 21 degrees. I think that's when they did the marathon, was right around then. So,
Oh no.
It feels warm once you've been in -50 and you get to that +20. It's like running around in a t-shirt and flip-flops.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll agree with that. I'll just have to agree with you mentally. So you went to the coldest place in the world, Antarctica, and then you decide what's your next adventure, and you found pageantry. So talk to me about pageantry, because, you know, I do have a history in that one.
Yay! I hadn't really heard anything about pageantry, especially for adults, but my friend who had suggested it had a friend who, I guess the People's Choice thing was going on, and she could raise money for her platform, and she was choosing a hunger campaign. And I was like, I want to do something for veterans, something for service members. So I just Googled pageants for veterans, and I found the All-American system, and they have a Veterans Queen title. So with like 2.5 months to try, I went ahead and submitted my package and was accepted to represent Ohio. I went. I had no idea what to expect. They said, write us an essay. You're going to do an interview. You're going to do an evening gown. You're going to do something called fun fashion. I was like, I don't know what that is, but I'll smile. That'll be fun, right? I had a really great time, but I lost. I lost so badly. But it was amazing to meet so many different women from so many different backgrounds. Again, just like being in the military. And the national platform is Operation We Care. So they seek donations to send care packages to deployed service members overseas. And I was like, that was me. My very first deployment. All we had was mail. We didn't have internet. We didn't have phones. We couldn't call anybody. It was just snail mail. And those care packages were just everything. Warm, dry socks? What? Who would think to send that to me? They didn't know I was here, but it was amazing. So I was like, this is it. I'm going to go again. I'm going to try again. And I went back the following year representing Ohio again, and I won. And I've spent this year traveling. I made over 120 appearances. I've been to 13 states, and I've raised over $8,000 for Operation We Care. So
That's awesome.
So
I want to dig more into pageantry, because that's something that I've been doing. But before we jump into that, let's take a word from our sponsor. MilMentor is the military's community's largest on-demand mentorship network built by veterans. You pick your own mentor, and as many as you like, from over 1,000. Whether you're a military spouse looking for resume help, a veteran building his network at his target company, or soon to transition and planning to start a business, there are recruiters, executives, and professionals across the field waiting to help. So sign up as a mentor or mentee at milmentor.com. So you got into pageantry, and you said you lost the first time because you had no clue. But you decided to go back anyways. Yeah. And I'm kind of smiling over here because that sounded like my story. I got into pageantry when I retired because a friend was like, you should do this. I said, no, you should. No, you should. No. And I thought about it. That's exactly how the conversation went. And I was like, okay, fine. But in my head, what people didn't realize, the conversation in my own head was, well, I've been in the Army for 20 years. I've deployed 3 times and kind of almost died a few times. I came close to committing suicide, which, I've shared that in other podcasts. I've gone through a divorce. Well, what's the worst that can happen? I mean, I've survived all of that. So what's the worst than being on stage? I could surely do this. Because the part that was the scariest to me was the swimsuit part. Because she said I had to do an interview. I was like, I got that. I'm a communications expert. They said, you have to do evening gown. I was like, well, I love dresses. And you have to do a swimsuit. I was like, oy. That was the part that had me pausing. I was like, I don't know if I could do that. But when I thought about all the life experiences that I had, I was like, what's the worst that can happen?
Mm-hmm.
And just like you said, the first time I had no idea what I was doing, no idea what to expect, right? The amount of makeup, hair, glitz and glam.
Mm.
I didn't fall flat on my face the first time around. I didn't win, but I didn't come in dead last. I did well enough for not knowing what the hell I was doing. But like you, I found a lot of women that I had grown to become very good friends with. It was a system, a sisterhood, and I just kept going back. I was a glutton for punishment, right? And so I've represented Georgetown, competed for DC, and then ended up representing the state of New York and the state of Virginia. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's been a journey. So you end up going back. You didn't win the first time. You're
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm going to be a glutton for punishment. I'm going to go back.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, what was the next part for you after you're like, I'm going to go back. I'm going to win this. And because you just fell in love with the mission and you've done all these appearances, what's next for you?
That's a great question. I haven't decided yet. I really need to because I can crown my successor in like 2 weeks. I think, first of all, I'll need a nap. I'll need the nap. And then I know with every adventure that I've had, there's a piece of it that sort of stays with me, that kind of permanently becomes a part of who I am. And I think with pageantry, I've learned that it's like I live my life with a crown. So I love the veterans community. I've become very involved in it, and I love that. And so I want to stay involved with that. I want to take on more responsibility at the VFW with the Honor Guard. And I think that if I continue to follow that, another adventure will find its way to me.
So, you are an Air Force veteran. You've had family that served. You went to the coldest continent that our world has to offer. You've done some deployments. You've gotten into pageantry. Talk to me about the lessons that you've learned through this, that if you could go back and talk to your 10-year-old self, that you would share.
Wow. There will be people who will tell you that you can't do something. Don't listen to them. They don't know you. Dig deep, press on. That's it. Wow. Yeah. I think that's what I would tell her. The doubters are the worst, right? When I was in 8th grade, I was diagnosed with dyslexia when I was in the 2nd grade. And when I was in the 8th grade, getting ready to transition into high school, I wanted to take a foreign language. I wanted to take German. My grandmother came from Germany. I grew up hearing her speak it. I could speak it a little bit. In junior high, I was allowed to take German, no problems. But because I was a special ed student, I could not take high school foreign language. And my special ed teacher had to sign off on me doing that, and he would not. I'm not going to do it. You have to erase that from the form before I'll sign it. So I did. I erased it, and in a very defiant moment, I wrote it back on and turned it into the office after he had signed it. So my freshman year, I took German and I got straight A's, even with a learning disability. And they said that I was too short to do so many things while I was in the Air Force. I did them anyway. And in fact, it was better because I had more legroom than everybody else. And when they said that I would never graduate from college, I did it anyway. And I got a master's. Don't listen to them. Believe in yourself. You can do it.
You talk about belief and digging in, and and thinking about that, sometimes that's harder to do. Have you been able to have people in your corner? And if so, who were they? And if you didn't, where did you find that ability to be able to believe in yourself? Because I know like it's always easy to say those things, right? It's always easy to give like these, these cliches of advice. But how do you really do that when it's hard to really tune out or turn down that voice in your head of doubt?
I think the biggest thing for me is growing my patience from a very early age, just knowing that things just take me longer to do. It takes me longer to read than it took my classmates to read, for instance, in the second grade. But I knew that I could do it. And growing that patience a little bit at a time, first in my schoolwork and then in my work. When I was planning to go to Antarctica, it's very competitive. The people usually spend about 2 years trying to go, from the first time they apply till the time they end up on ice. And I was able to go the first time I applied. And I remember saying to my friend, "Oh, I can't believe this is happening." And she was like, "Have you met you? How are you surprised this is happening?" And I realized that I had just said to myself, this will happen. It might not happen at the same time that it happens for everybody else, but it will happen. Stay the course. My biggest supporters have always been my family. First, my mom when I was growing up, and then my husband. And I've always had really amazing friends.
I like you talk about being positive, right? And I think that's important. I think it's easy to be doubtful, to have negative thoughts, but what you really highlighted is having positive thoughts, but also having positive people around you. So it's important to have a network of people that are close to you and being able to lean on that. But more importantly, understanding that you surround yourself with the people that are going to be your loudest cheerleader. And you really highlighted that and really have been able to lean on that. So thanks for showing that. But the interesting thing that you noted was the competitiveness to get to the coldest part of the world. I didn't know that. So how interesting. I guess, people like me who hate being cold are not the ones that are competing to go to Antarctica. But Angel, thank you so much for spending your time sharing a little bit about your story, everything from, why you joined, your humanitarian mission to Kosovo, and that aha moment as to why you knew that making a lifetime of service was something that you wanted to do, sharing your moments of pageantry and why you decided to go to the coldest place in the world. But thank you for what you do for our military community, and thanks for just being you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving me the chance to share my story today.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening to Women of War, proudly sponsored by Mil Mentor, where the military community finds its mentors. Until next time, keep showing up, speaking out, and standing strong.